billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Yesterday, day one, which was on Wednesday, we started off with the virtues of the blessed Sahaba radiyallaho anhu. And yesterday we touched upon briefly on the virtues of the Ahlul Bayt, and the main focus of the discussion was on the Panchland Bark, and we discussed that the first was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Hazrat Fatima Zahra, and Hazrat Imam Hussain and Imam Hussain. And today we'll be going into a brief discussion of the martyring of Hazrat Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the third Caliph of Islam, and the rise of the Fitna from that. Passing it to Shaykh.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم ومن والاه. أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Brothers, this is the third day of our program, which is very lengthy, and it's a big commitment to come every day. And alhamdulillah, may Allah reward those that do come. It's something that's quite unique, new, and something which is quite different to once a week or once every few weeks. Today on Wednesday we discussed the concept of the love or the virtues of the Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, and yesterday we discussed it briefly because time did not permit me to go into greater detail the fadail of the Ahlul Bayt and who are the Ahlul Bayt ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in. And what we said was the Ahlul Bayt and the Sahaba, these are two types of individual identities, okay? But every Sahabi is not from the Ahlul Bayt, but every Ahlul Bayt is a Sahabi apart from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because the Prophet is the head of his family. He is the first member of the Ahlul Bayt, as we said. And we discussed the types of the Ahlul Bayt. You know, we discussed the four different types of Ahlul Bayt and their position. But today we want to discuss or move towards the journey of Karbala itself, towards the journey, and to understand really what happened in 61 after Hijri. To really understand that, you have to really go back to the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu. You can't really understand, and this is something which many people unfortunately do. They attempt to understand the seerah or the history from when Muawiyah passes away radiallahu anhu, the death of Muawiyah. And they assume that that's where Karbala begins. It doesn't begin from there. The fitna, the tribulations actually start at the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu, and we want to look at it. Now Uthman himself is someone who is from the senior members of the Sahaba. He is one of the most senior of the members, and he is the fourth Khalif. He is the fourth leader from the Khulafa. So he is the third leader from the Khulafa. And Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu wa arda, he is someone that is known as Dhul Nurayn, the one who married two of the daughters of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ruqayyah and Kulthum. I don't have time to go through the virtues of Uthman, which he really does deserve, but time will not permit me to do that. But one thing I want to share is that Uthman, his coming to Islam, is that he is from a very wealthy family. And the Arabs at that time belonged to 10 predominant tribes from the Quraysh. The Quraysh had 10 tribes. For example, you had Bani Makhzum, which is one of the most senior tribes, which is the tribe of Khalid bin Walid's tribe, radiallahu anhu. Sayyidina Umar's mother was from that tribe also. There's a dispute on that, radiallahu anhu. And then you have, for example, Banu Hashim. Banu Hashim by far, as I said in Jummah today, that Banu Hashim is the most superior of all the tribes of the Arabs. The most superior was Banu Hashim, the Prophet's tribe, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then you have Banu Umayyah. Banu Umayyah are basically, they are the family of Uthman radiallahu anhu. Uthman's father was called Affan, and Affan was basically the cousin, one narration says, but his brother was called Hakim, was one of his brothers, who was the father of the infamous Marwan, who we will study and learn who is Marwan and what happened, and is he a good man or isn't he a good man. There's this dispute among some people about this individual called Marwan, so we want to look at it from that angle. And he's the cousin in one way to Muawiyah radiallahu anhu through Abu Sufyan. Okay? So these are the tribes. And then you have Banu Adi, which is the tribe of Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. And then you have Banu Taym, which is a tribe that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu belonged to. Now from all of these tribes, the most superior of them was Banu Hashim, the tribe of Rasul. And one of the tribes that wasn't as superior was Banu Taym, which is the tribe Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu belonged to. That is the reason why that when they elected Hazrat Abu Bakr as the leader, when he became the Khalifa, there is a narration which is mentioned in At-Tabarani, as I've mentioned this narration, that Abu Sufyan comes to the house of Ali radiallahu anhu, and he brings Abbas with him. And he says to Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, how can we allow, remember he had just become a Muslim. Okay, yes, he's a Sahabi, we respect him, because he then became a Muslim later on, but his entering into Islam was very, it was very new. It wasn't long. So what did he say? He said to Ali radiallahu anhu, how can we allow someone like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq to be our leaders? You get the point? Why? Because he was saying that you are from Banu, I'm from Banu Umayyah, and you are Ali, you're from Banu Hashim. We are the most superior of tribes in Arabia. How can we allow his tribe to become a leader? And then he said, if you give the order, I'll have heads chopped off in Medina. It's a narration. At-Tabrani mentions this. And Ali radiallahu anhu became angry and said, may Allah curse those who cause fitna. Sayyidina Ali said, I will not cause fitna. And Sayyidina Ali said, Wallahi, I never sought this leadership from Allah publicly or privately. He says, my only objection is not to Abu Bakr that he doesn't fit the leadership. He does. He says, my only objection was that they never had shura with me. I deserved to be part of the consultation. And that was a dispute he had, which was resolved, and eventually, some narrations say 6 months later, Sayyidina Ali gave bay'ah to Hazrat Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. But one thing I want to mention is, that dispute about the bay'ah, the allegiance, it was not based upon he did not accept Hazrat Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. That's incorrect. Why? Because we have many hadith where both are praising each other. Both are what? For example, there's one hadith in Tirmidhi in which this was approximately 6 days after the Prophet had passed away sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they both come to the Rawdat al-Mubarak of the Prophet. And Ali says, Taqaddumu ya Khalifa Rasul. You go first, ya Khalifa, or Khalifa of the Prophet. And Abu Bakr then says, how can I go before you? He says, how can I go before you? When I heard the Messenger of Allah himself say, Ali, your position, your manzil, your position with me is like my place with Allah. That's how the Prophet described his relationship with Mawla. Ali karamallahu wajhu kareem. Abu Bakr said, how can I go before you? So that was the love that the Sahaba Ridwanullah ajma'in had. Now today we're going to discuss the martyrdom of Uthman radiallahu anhu. Why was Sayyidina Uthman martyred? The reasons behind it, the rise of the fitna, and briefly touch on the issue of the battle of the camel between Aisha radiallahu anha on one side, Talha Zubair, and Ali radiallahu anhu on the other side, which happened in Basra. But let me share and say one thing which is of caution. The problem we have in history, and this is specifically if you read the books of history in Arabic, and some of them are available in English, is when you have historians like Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari. He's one of the first unique, he wrote the most unique history book that was available. What Imam Tabari really does, he doesn't distinguish between the authentic narrations and the weak narrations or the fabricated. All Imam Ibn Jarir al-Tabari does, he collects all the narrations together in one place and he leaves it there. Because the book wasn't written for the common person, it was written for certain people. So what happens is when he does that, in the narrations, there are many weak and many fabricated narrations speaking about the incidents that took place around the martyrdom of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda. So what happens then is you have to then go to another scholar. You have to then refer to, and to be honest, in my view, in my humble view, one of the best historical books written, and he was good at, even though we disagree with many of the things that Ibn Kathir writes. Ibn Kathir was a student of Ibn Taymiyyah, but Ibn Kathir's historical work is magnificent. You can't deny it. You have to give credit where it's due. And Ibn Kathir, even though we know who Ibn Taymiyyah was, we know the innovations that were started by him about al-mujassimat, giving Allah an image, giving Allah a body, and so forth. But irrespective of these differences, what we learn is Ibn Kathir is a masterpiece. You can't deny it. And what Ibn Kathir does, he looks at it from a historical perspective, but then he judges each event and he judges each narration like you would judge the hadith. So he looks at the chain, who narrated the hadith. So you will find, for example, and this is just to introduce the point, if you read, let's say, At-Tabri's introduction to what happened to Uthman, if you read it yourself, the conclusion that you would have, a'udhu billah, was that Ali was his enemy. That is what you would have. The conclusion you would come out with is that Ali radiyallaho anhu and Aisha were enemies. And Talha and Zubair radiyallahu anhuma hated Hazrat Ali. But that's not true. Why? Because you are looking from where? You are looking, or you are reading something that At-Tabri just collected. At-Tabri never organized the narrations, rahimahullah ta'ala. He just put all of the narrations together. That is the reason why you shouldn't approach these books. It is advisable that the Muslims should not go to books like At-Tabri, because it's not designed for normal people. You should try to learn. Ibn Athir's book is much more, Tariq al-Dimashqi is a much more unique, and it's a much more authentic version. So do you all understand that? So you might read, for example, on the internet or on Google, for example, or in the history of Imam Tabri, in the Tariq of Imam Tabri, he narrates this narration, and that narration sounds like Ali is the enemy of Uthman. That's not true. Even though that narration is in the book. Do you all understand that as a foundation? So now we look at this issue of Umar radiallahu anhu very quickly. Umar radiallahu anhu was appointed as a leader on the deathbed of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Umar radiallahu anhu, one of the reasons why he was targeted by a man called Firoz. And Firoz was a Persian. And one of the reasons why Firoz attacked Sayyidina Umar was during the leadership of Umar, Islam entered into Persia. Persia entered into the Muslim world. And that was the end of the Persian Empire. At that time, there were two superpowers of the world. One was the Byzantine Empire, and one was the Persian Empire. And we all know how powerful the Persian Empire was. We're looking at Iraq, and Iran was one land. It wasn't separate like it's separated now. So when Islam entered into this land, a lot of people became enemies of Islam. Why? Because this new identity had come. Amongst them was a person called Firoz. And what Firoz did, he entered into Medina al-Munawwara. Umar radiallahu anhu made a rule. And the rule was what? The rule was no non-Muslim was allowed into Medina al-Munawwara. No non-Muslim was allowed. He made this rule. Firoz, under the pretext of being a Muslim, pretended to live in Medina al-Munawwara. So what Firoz did, he had a dispute with Umar, and he said to Umar radiallahu anhu that my master who owns him, I can't remember the name of the Sahabi, it was one of the Sahaba, it's not coming to my head right now. He is demanding more than he requires in regards to money from me, tax. And this is unfair, because he was Firoz was a carpenter. That was his profession. So Umar, what he did, radiallahu anhu, said, what's your job? And Umar said, look, end of the day, I need to write to him. The point was, Firoz was not happy. And Firoz turned around and he threatened Umar radiallahu anhu. He threatened him. Umar ignored it and went. The story is that Umar then went into the masjid. Umar went into the masjid for Fajr. Firoz got a dagger, a knife. He put poison onto it. And obviously, what did I say in the Jummah today? For those who came to Jummah, Umar is a strong man. His body is a muscular man. And he isn't a man you want to take a one-to-one with. Definitely. Umar radiyallahu anhu is not one of those people that you want to have a one-to-one fight with. Anyway, Feroz realized that the weakest time to attack Umar would be in the namaz, in the salah. So what Feroz did, he hid, and when Umar stood up to lead the prayer, he came into the masjid, the faithful stood up for him, he went forward to lead the prayer, and when Umar started the prayer, Feroz attacked him and stabbed him. And he was so angry and had so much anger that he stabbed Umar radiallahu anhu 6 times. And Umar became unconscious, and the people then began to apprehend this man, and he stabbed himself. The narration says he stabbed himself. When Umar gains consciousness, the first thing he says, radiallahu anhu warda, Allahu Akbar, he says, did they pray Fajr? Did they pray? Was the salah done? And they said yes. And he said, what have you done to the person who did this to me? They said, oh, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he killed himself. He said, khair. And then Umar relaxed. And then the doctors came and they gave him some milk. And when he drank the milk, because of the wounds that he had, the milk came out. The milk then left his body. That was an indication that it was fatal. That injury that Umar had was fatal. So what Umar did, Umar realized that his ending is coming too close. So he calls his son Abdullah bin Umar. And he tells Abdullah bin Umar, these are an inheritance. Look at this point he says, subhanAllah. He says, I offer you this much inheritance, but he gave double to Osama bin Zayd. He gave double. This is mentioned in Ash-Shifa Sharif. I'm not making this up. He gave. Abdullah bin Umar said, oh my father, I'm your son. I'm your blood son. How come you have given more money to Osama? Who's Osama? He's the son of Zayd. Who is Zayd? He was the adopted son of the Prophet. You all remember him? Zayd bin Haritha, one of the senior of the Sahaba, Ridwanullahu alayhim ajma'in. And Umar says something quite beautiful. Subhanallah. Umar turns around to him and says, yes, you are my son, but know this. His father was more beloved to Rasulullah than your father. And he is more beloved to me than you, my son. So he gave double to him. Anyway, some people then realized that Umar was about to come to an end. So they suggested that they would elect a successor. So Abu Ubaidah, the people came to Umar and said, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, won't you choose a leader? Won't you select a new leader? And Umar says, who do I choose? Umar says, Wallahi, if Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, one of the Ashat al-Mubashira, he said, if he was here today, I would have made him the leader. But he's passed away. And then one of the people said, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, why don't you choose your son Ibn Umar? He has all the qualities of being a leader. And Umar then says, may Allah's curse be upon you. He says, how can you that? He says, may Allah's curse be upon you. I am dying. I'm going to face my Allah. And you want the last thing I do, that I turn the Khilafah, I turn the affairs of the Muslims into father to son? I turn it into a family fortune, a family inheritance? He says, Wallahi, I will never do that. I will never do that. Umar refuses. Eventually Umar agrees. And Umar agrees to what? He says, nominate 6 people. He said Ali, Uthman, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqas, Zubair bin Awwam, and Talha, Abu Talha. Okay, Talha bin Ubaidullah. He says, these 6 personalities, he says, you choose the leader amongst yourselves. He says, my son Abdullah bin Umar will be a witness and a scribe, but he does not have a vote, nor can he become a leader. So eventually what happened, because some of them left, 4 of them left out, the tie was between 2, Ali and Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu. Who's going to be the leader between them 2? And there's only 1 vote left. Who's the vote? The vote of Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu. Eventually what happened, Abdurrahman gave his vote to Sayyidina Uthman, and Uthman then became the leader. And Uthman becomes the leader, and he then goes to the people and he says the following. He says, oh people, Ya ma'ashar al-Muslimin, O people, Ya ma'ashar al-Insan, it is not easy to manage a new horse. It is not easy to manage a new horse, but inshallah, I live and there will be several other occasions for me to talk to you. And you know that I'm not good in speaking to you. You know I'm not a good public speaker, because Umar had the quality of haya, modesty. He was a very modest person. And the Prophet said even the angels feel modesty when they see Uthman. There's one hadith, let me share with you, that the Prophet was sitting by himself and some of his leg became uncovered and the Prophet did nothing. Abu Bakr came in, radiyallaho anhu, and the Prophet did not change it or cover it. Umar came in, the Prophet. When Uthman came, the Prophet immediately covered it. Immediately covered it. And then Aisha said, Ya Rasulullah, my father came, he did nothing. Umar came, you didn't. But when Uthman came, why? The Prophet said, because the angels feel shy of Umar. Sorry, of Uthman, because of his modesty. He was a very modest man. And Uthman's character was really opposite to Umar radiallahu anhu. Umar was a harsh man, to such an extent that Umar, when he became the leader, he used to say, Oh Allah, make me like Uthman. Make me soft like Uthman. And Uthman used to do dua and say, Oh Allah, make me strong and harsh like Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. You know, the Sahaba used to have this amusement amongst themselves. So Uthman was an old man in age. Uthman is senior in age. So eventually he becomes the leader. And one of the issues that happens now is, let me read the hadith to you first before I continue. Uthman radiallahu anhu has a certain quality which no other Sahabi has. He was given immunity from every future sin. All of you say subhanallah. What do we mean by that? One day, this is narrated by Hudayfa bin Yaman, the famous Sahabi narrated the hadith, that Uthman came to the Prophet ﷺ and he brought with him 10,000 gold coins. And he placed them in the hands of the Prophet and said, Ya Rasul, do whatever you want to do with it. The Prophet said, Allah has forgiven you, Ya Uthman, Ya Ibn Affan. O son of Affan, Allah has forgiven you. O Uthman, what you did in secret and openly and what you do until the day of judgment, Allah has forgiven you. Uthman, you shall not be harmed by anything you do from this day. In other words, what the Prophet said to Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, which no other Sahabi has this quality. It's only a speciality of Sayyidina Uthman. He said all of the companions will commit sin. The Prophet said to Uthman, after this day, only you, whatever you do after this day, Allah has forgiven you already. So one of the things that Uthman does, is he begins to replace the governors of the Muslim lands, Yemen, Syria, Egypt and so forth. And what he does, he then replaces those governors with his family members, with his cousins, and those people who were close to him. That's number one, what Umar did. And that was one of the reasons that people did not accept that. And people took advantage. It wasn't because it wasn't because Uthman radiallahu anhu was trying to please his cousins. One of the reasons why he placed his cousins in power was that he said, I can control them, I know who they are. I trust them. And remember, this is Uthman, he can do whatever he wants to. We don't speak ill of him. Right or wrong, we keep silent on it. But Uthman radiallahu anhu did that. Uthman. Another thing that Uthman did was, there was a man called Hakim. Who is Hakim? Hakim was his uncle, his paternal uncle. He is what we call in our Zaban, his chachu. Okay? Now Hakim was a Muslim, but eventually what happened to him, the Prophet threw him out of Medina al-Munawwara. Why? Because Hakim, what he used to do was, in Medina Sharif, the Prophet used to have private meetings with the Sahaba, confidentiality. And Hakim would overhear this, take whatever the Prophet was saying and tell everyone. Number one. A second thing that Hakim used to do was that Hakim, he used to mimic the Prophet. A'udhu billah. He used to pretend to walk like the Prophet. A'udhu billah. And he wouldn't do this in a good way, he would do this in a derogatory manner. in a derogatory way, the way the Prophet would walk, and he would do it with the way the Prophet would talk. So one day he was trying to mimic the way the Prophet was speaking in a derogatory manner, and the Prophet captured him, saw him, and that's when the Prophet did dua against him. The Prophet did dua against him, and for the rest of his life his head was like that. And then the Prophet said, leave. The Prophet said, expel him from Medina. He's not allowed in Medina. And then when Abu Bakr became the leader, Abu Bakr expelled him even further. And then Umar became the leader, Umar expelled him even further. You understand? Hakim had a son called Marwan. Marwan is the cousin brother of Uthman radiyallaho anhu. He was about 7 to 8 years old when his father Hakim was expelled from Medina al-Munawwara. One of the things that Uthman does, when Abu Bakr becomes the leader, he comes to Abu Bakr. So what happened initially, Uthman comes to the Prophet and he asks the Prophet to forgive his uncle and says, let him come back, and the Prophet agreed. That's the hadith according to Uthman. That was the view that Uthman brought forward. Okay? But it was never implemented. The Prophet passed away sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Abu Bakr became the leader, Uthman went to Abu Bakr and said, "O Khalifatul Rasul, this is something the Prophet promised me. Okay? Can you honor that promise?" Abu Bakr, look at Abu Bakr. As-Siddiq. He's a man who is As-Siddiq. ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا. Subhanallah, As-Siddiq al-Akbar. What does he say? He says, do you have a witness? Who is he speaking to? Uthman. Abu Bakr was the one that made Uthman a Muslim, by the way. Did you know that? Uthman came to Islam through the hands of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. So he knows that they're friends. They do business together. Abu Bakr said, this is a matter of the deen. This isn't a business transaction. Look how cautious he is. He says, do you have a witness? He says, I don't have a witness. He says, I can't fulfill your honor. And Abu Bakr refused. Abu Bakr passed away, Umar became the leader. Same thing happened with Umar. Umar says, do you have a witness? He says, no, I can't do it. Uthman becomes the leader now. And one of the things that Uthman does, radiallahu anhu, is he brings his uncle back to Medina al-Munawwara. He brings Marwan back, his cousin brother. What he then does, he then offers his daughter in marriage to Marwan, his cousin brother. So Marwan then becomes his son-in-law. And then what he does, he appoints Marwan as his secretary, his chief secretary, and his scribe to writing letters. This, according to Orientalists, what the Orientalists say, I'm quoting them, so no one can accuse me of, saying it. Orientalists said this was the biggest mistake of Uthman. This was the biggest mistake that Sayyidina Uthman made. Why? Because Marwan was a very conniving individual. Marwan was a man who hated Ahlul Bayt. Marwan hated Hazrat Ali. He had a harsh hatred towards Sayyidina Ali, to such an extent that there's even a hadith in Bukhari that Marwan used to curse Sayyidina Ali on the mimbar. In Medina al-Munawwara, Marwan will stand on the mimbar, a'udhu billah, and he will curse Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. So he was a very conniving individual. He was a shrewd businessman. He didn't care about people. He was corrupt. He was a man of corruption. He wasn't a pious man. He wasn't a God-fearing man. He didn't have the qualities of what we call a man of sidq. You understand? He was a very evil individual. And what he did, he took advantage of his relationship with Sayyidina Uthman to benefit himself. And he then took advantage. So Sayyidina Uthman would do something, and one of the things that Marwan would do, and this is narrated by many of the people, many of the scholars have mentioned this. One of the things that Marwan used to do was that he used to write letters without the knowledge of Uthman radiallahu anhu. I don't know what you call it in English. The words are coming to my mind. Anyone can help me with a word? He used to pretend to be Umar, said Uthman. Forgery, fantastic, thank you. Yeah, he's my student. That is Quran with us. Masha, thank you. He used to forge, that's the word, forge. He used to forge letters on behalf of Sayyidina Uthman. And Uthman had no idea what's happening. No record. There was no record. And he would then seal it. So what happened? When this fitna happened, Marwan then began to implement certain policies in the government that was beneficial to him. So Uthman would tell him to do one thing, Marwan would go around and do something totally different. You understand? And Sayyidina Uthman was an elderly man. His age was that he was senior. We're looking at late 70s. He's going towards, and he passed away, or he was shaheed at the age of 82 years old. Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu. So Marwan took advantage of Sayyidina Uthman. Marwan then what he then began to do, he then wrote letters to governors, pretending to be Uthman, sacking governors, doing this. And then he began to take the money from the Baytul Mal. So he was a corrupt individual. Uthman's wife radiallahu anha, she knew this night, and she used to say to Uthman, get rid of him. He's a bad influence. He's a bad man. He's not a good person. Anyway, the people then became upset. The Awam became fed up of the fitna. Why? Because for 11, 12 years, the Muslim lands have been peaceful. The governors, look, when Umar was the governor was not allowed to have a dome on his house. Did you know that? The governor wasn't allowed to have a dome. Umar said, just put a cloth there. He says, no governor is allowed to have a door, because any person can enter into his house and hold him accountable. Subhanallah. That's Umar radiallahu anhu's position. So the Muslims were used to that type of dealing. But now came a time where the governor had a wall, had a fortress, a governor had slaves, a governor had luxury, he had gold, he used to wear, and what the people saw was that the governors were behaving in a way which was against the Sunnah. So who were they going to blame? Uthman radiallahu anhu. So the people then began to say that Uthman is responsible for this fitna. It is the fault of Uthman that we have all this fitna. And another thing that took place was that Uthman used to have a ring on his hand, and that was the ring which used to belong to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it used to have the seal on it, Allah Muhammad Rasul. So whenever the Prophet used to sign a letter, he was sealed in it. And then that ring was given to Abu Bakr. After Abu Bakr it was given to Umar, and after Umar it was then given to whom? Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu arda. Uthman, what he did was, he began to dig a well. And while he was digging the well, the ring fell in. The ring fell in. He made every attempt to locate the ring, but he wasn't able to find it. So Chinese whispers got around. You know, like Chinese whisper, you say one thing to one person, he says something to this man, by the time it gets to him, it's totally opposite. So what did people say? The people then said that Rasulullah has left Uthman. The Prophet has abandoned Uthman. Look at the fitna. People weren't looking at the fadail. People weren't reading that Uthman is Dhul-Nurayn, is the man of two lights. So what the people then did, the news got around the Muslim world that Uthman has been abandoned by the Prophet. And this fitna became so paramount, so open, so normal, that the news came back to Uthman in Medina. So Uthman gathered his advisors and said to him, what should I do? They said, call them for Hajj. So Uthman wrote a letter to all his governors. He says, come to the Hajj. I order you to come to the Hajj. All the governors come to the Hajj. Uthman gives a sermon radiallahu anhu, and he begins the sermon and says, O people, I was given this leadership, but I am not the best amongst you. But he said, I will not abandon this leadership. I will not abandon this trust that Allah has given me. And then Uthman radiallahu anhu, what he does, he goes through all of the grievances of the people. Because the people had issues. This is happening, this is happening, this is happening. This never happened during the time of Uthman. Sorry, Umar. Why is it happening now? So Uthman radiallahu anhu very eloquently, with sincerity, he answers all the objections of the people. And at that time he assumes that the fitna is over and finished. And then Muawiyah radiallahu anhu comes to him and gave him some advice. And one of the advice that he gave to Uthman, who was his cousin, he says, why don't you come to Syria? You should come to Damascus as a tour, as a visit. And Uthman said, the Khalifa cannot leave the city of the Prophet. That was Sayyidina Uthman said. And then Muawiyah said to him, why don't you agree and allow me to send you some soldiers to protect you? Uthman said, I will not allow anyone to shed the blood of a Muslim in Medina al-Munawwara. Look how Uthman is, unique. And Muawiyah then said, what can I do? He said, and Uthman kept quiet. And there's one narration that says that one of the things that was agreed was that Muawiyah said that if you are to be killed by anyone, you agree that I can seek revenge on your behalf, blood money on your behalf. I can seek revenge from the people. So Uthman then sends him. The situation becomes so confrontational and the people become so fed up that people from 3 cities then arise together to cause fitna. One was from Kufa, and we know all what the Kufan people were like. Kufa is a city next to Najaf in Iraq. One was Basra, the people of Basra, and the third was the Egyptian people, the people from Egypt. All 3 conspired. They got together and they said, no, we have to march and we have to go to Uthman. So a delegation went to Medina al-Munawwara. And that delegation, one of the people in that delegation was a man called Muhammad bin Abi Bakr. Muhammad, the son of Abu Bakr, radiyallaho ta'ala anhu, who was a Sahabi. And they complained to Sayyidina Uthman about the situation. They say, oh Uthman, and they exaggerate because some of the people within that group were liars. They were what? Liars. And they exaggerate and they say that the situation in Egypt is very bad. Amongst the people that was with them was Amr bin As radiallahu anhu warda. Amr is one of the Sahaba, one of the Sahabis of the Prophet, and he also reinforces the complaint in regards to the problems and the injustices that are taking place within the land of Islam. So what happens then? The situation becomes so volatile that Uthman then calls Hazrat Ali. He calls Sher Khuda. And Ali radiallahu anhu comes to him. And when he sits with him, Sayyidina Ali sits with him and says, O Amir al-Mu'min, O leader of the believers, fear Allah. So the Sahaba, if you said to me, fear Allah, man, who are you to tell me to fear Allah? That's arrogance, arrogant. If someone says to you nowadays, fear Allah, he said, who are you to tell me? But then there's a Sahaba, when they used to correct each other, it wasn't an issue. They never used to make it a problem. They never used to make it an issue. Ali says the following. Ali says, many things I have met these people from Egypt and from the delegation. Ali says, radiallahu anhu warda, many of the things that they are saying are valid. They are precedents. It's true what they are saying. Some of the things they are saying. And he says, but I don't know how I should tell you what they've said. Ali says, I heard them and their grievances are valid, but I don't know how to tell you, Amir al-Mu'min. He says, I cannot think of any matter about which I can advise you, nor do I know of anything more than what you already know. You are aware of all of this. Ali was assuming this, radiallahu anhu. And he says, how should I give this information to you? He says, I'm not better than you, and nor are you, nor do you know anything that other people don't know, nothing secret. He says, we all know how close you are to the Messenger of Allah. He says, neither, this is Ali speaking to who? Uthman. He says, neither Abu Bakr or Umar are close to the Prophet in the way that you are close to the Prophet. You were more closer to the Prophet than even Abu Bakr and Umar, and we all know that. Ali is speaking of himself. He says, we know your relationship to the Prophet. He says, this position that we have today is because of the things that you've done, the policies that you've implemented. And Uthman then listened, and Ali said, O Khalifa, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, I invoke Allah's help. I tell you, ask Allah to resolve these problems. Ali then says, radiallahu anhu warda, he's giving a reminder to Sayyidina Uthman. He says, the worst person is the one who is a leader and is unjust. Not saying Uthman was unjust, he was reminding him to fear Allah, that you shouldn't be in this position. And eventually what happened was Ali left the gathering, and the situation became even more volatile then. It became so volatile that the Egyptians then had a plan, they put a plan together, and that plan was what? They said, we are going to enter into Medina and we are going to overthrow Uthman, and if Uthman doesn't agree, we will kill him. So they agreed. So 3 cities galvanized an army: Kufa, Basra and Egypt, the Egyptian area, and 1,000 men travel to Medina al-Munawwara, and they go to the Hajj first, and they come there, and when they come and they arrive to besiege Sayyidina Uthman radiyallaho anhu warda, and they want to kill him, the Egyptians then go to Ali first. The Egyptians go to Sayyidina Ali, and they say to Sayyidina Ali, you are the cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You are the husband of Fatima. You are the father of the grandsons of the Prophet. Your virtues are a second to none. No one can deny your closeness to the Prophet. The Egyptians are playing a mind game, you know, and they say, why don't you support us? We will remove Uthman and we will replace you and make you the leader. Ali says, by Allah, I will not do this. Sayyidina Ali said, by Allah, I will not be treacherous. By Allah, I will not rise against Uthman. This is not from the Sunnah. The Kufan people who are from Kufa, they then approached Zubair. Look at it, look how conniving they were. 3 cities, Egypt, Kufa and Basra. Egypt went to Ali, Kufa went to Zubair, and Basra went to Talha. And they all went at the same time. Each delegation went at the same time to convince whom? To convince Ali, to convince Zubair, to convince Talha to be. All 3 of them refused. All 3 of them said, yes, we have differences and grievances with Uthman. We disagree with him on some of the policies, but they said we will not rise against him. Now remember, the reason why these policies were wrong, it wasn't because of Uthman. There were 2 realities. What is the reality? One reality was what Uthman was seeing with his eyes. You understand? And that was clear. But the evilness of what was happening behind the scene was Marwan. Marwan was his cousin, his representative, his secretary. So he was dodging and he was maneuvering in a very conniving way. So Uthman, no information came to Uthman. Whenever anyone wrote a letter, the letter would go to whom? Marwan. Marwan would read it. If he liked it, he put it. If he didn't like it, he would then reply a forged letter on behalf of Uthman. So in other words, the de facto leader, head of state was Marwan. Marwan was really the head of state, unfortunately. And Uthman, because of his age, because of his humbleness, because of his softness, because of his character, he was modest. Marwan took advantage of that. And also because the Prophet said, O Uthman, after this day, whatever you do, Allah has forgiven you. So what happened? Now we're coming towards that time. When the delegation arrives of 1,000 people in Medina al-Munawwara, they didn't demand that we remove the Khalifa. So the first plan was to approach the 3 of the most senior of the Sahaba. When that failed, the evil doers then said, let's meet him with our demands. They had a demand. So Uthman sent a representative to speak to them, what seems to be the issue, and they refused to meet him. So what Uthman then did, Sayyidina Uthman, he calls Sayyidina Ali. He calls Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhuma, and he says to Ali, why don't you go and meet the rebels, meet the people and speak to them and bring to me, because he trusted Hazrat Ali more than he trusted anyone. Sayyidina Ali meets whom? The rebels. He speaks to them. and he discusses with them their grievances. They then give a demand of certain things that they wanted to change. We want this, we want a new governor in Egypt, we wanted to remove the governor of Egypt, we wanted to make these changes, O Uthman. Ali then looks at them and says, these are valid. He goes back to Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Uthman. He says to Uthman, I met the delegation and these are their demands. And these are the things that you need to do to implement in order for these people to leave Medina and for there to be peace. And if you implement this, Ali says, in my opinion, the affairs of the Ummah will change, inshallah. Uthman looks at the demands. One of the demands is what? You remove the governor and you appoint Muhammad bin Abi Bakr. Muhammad, the son of Abu Bakr, you appoint him as the leader or the governor. He says, that's fine. Uthman had nothing to do wrong with that. And then they had a few more points. Uthman agreed to all of them. Uthman then turns around to Sayyidina Ali and says to him, radiyallaho anhu, I agree to every single point. I agree to it. So look at it. I have no disagreement. If this is going to cause unity between the Muslims, I agree. So what does Uthman do? Uthman then says to Ali, go and speak to them. Tell them I've agreed. Ali comes to the rebels and tells them that Amir al-Mu'mineen has agreed to your demands. Now, you need to retire, leave Medina, go back to your lands. We will deal with this. They agreed. When Sayyidina Uthman now goes back, who's waiting there? Marwan. One narration says what? That Marwan came and Sayyidina Ali said that if you don't remove him, there will be no good. Marwan is that type of individual. Let me quote you what Shah Abdul Aziz al-Muhaddith al-Dehli ala rahmatullah alayhi said. Shah Abdul Aziz says in his fatwa that in order to love the Ahlul Bayt, you have to curse Marwan. That's how far Shah Abdul Aziz went. It doesn't mean you have to curse him, but that's how far and evil this man was. That Shah Abdul Aziz then said, in order for you to love the Ahlul Bayt. And another point which I never mentioned, Marwan, when he was born to the Prophet ﷺ. This is narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha in Hadith Abu Dawud Sharif. And when Marwan came as a baby, his father bought him, Hakim, and he said to Rasulullah, pray for him. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet said no. The Prophet says, may Allah's la'na be upon him. The Prophet said, Allah's la'na be upon you, Allah's la'na is upon him and your fathers. This is the ayatul, you know the ayatul of the verse of cursing? This was revealed because of Marwan. This was revealed because of these people. Very evil, very conniving people. The whole objective was what? Even though Marwan is one of the main narrators of hadith in the Kutub al-Sittah, but the Muhaddithin have said they accept his narration with the condition that it does not contradict the narrations of the other great Sahaba. So Marwan wasn't a good man. There is no one that can actually say to you, he would actually have to have some physical, mental issue with it to say Marwan was a good man. Marwan was not a good man. Marwan was an evil man. Marwan was the man who changed the khutbah of Jum'ah. Marwan was the man who used to say, no, let's not do the khutbah, let's pray first and then do the khutbah. Marwan was the one who used to sit on the mimbar. Can you imagine sitting on the mimbar in Medina Sharif, right next to the Prophet's Rawdat al-Mubarak, and say, may Allah curse Ali, a'udhu billah. That's what he used to do. And I'm not making, this is not a conspiracy. You open up any book of Tariq and it's full. It's full with narrations. Marwan used to mimic and he used to abuse the name of Abu Turab. When someone said Ali was called Abu Turab, Marwan said, he used to laugh, he says, what a stupid name. How can you call yourself Abu Turab, the man of soil? And that's when the people went to Ibn Abbas and they said to Ibn Abbas, this is what Marwan said. Ibn Abbas said, Wallahi, I heard the Messenger of Allah himself say that he went to the house of Fatima. Ali was not there. There was a dispute. Ali slept in the masjid. The Prophet came into the masjid. Ali was lying. Half of his back was uncovered. It was full of dust. And the Prophet was cleaning his back and said, Ijlis ya Abu Turab. Rise ya Abu Turab. The name name Abu Turab that was given to Sayyidina Ali was a name given to him by the Prophet. And Sayyidina Ali himself says, from every name that I was given, the most beloved name I have is Abu Turab. Why? Because the Prophet called me that. So you realize how evil and how conniving this man was. Marwan is sitting there and Uthman says, write this letter to the people of Egypt from Uthman ibn Affan, Amir al-Mu'mineen, to the leader or the governor, I can't remember the governor's name at this moment, of Egypt. He says, I'm removing you from your position. Muhammad bin Abi Bakr is coming. When he enters into Egypt, appoint him as the leader and give allegiance and assist him in everything. Marwan, what he wrote, look what Marwan wrote. Marwan then wrote that Muhammad bin Abi Bakr is coming to Egypt. When he arrives, kill him. When he arrives, kill him. And then he seals it. He closes the letter. One narration says he forged a new letter, Wallahu Alam, and then he sent it with one of the servants of Uthman to go to Egypt. Muhammad bin Abi Bakr has left Medina al-Munawwara. They're going back to Egypt now because they've won, because they thought their demands have been accepted. They then see the spy, the Osman's spy, and they captured him. Eventually they found a letter that they sent. The letter saying that when he comes to Egypt, kill them. So what did they do? When they read this, they're outrageous, they're shocked. We went to Amir al-Mu'mineen, we went to the leader of the Muslims, and we went to him for what reason? We went to him so that he could resolve this issue. And what did he do? He lied to us. That's what Shaitan plays with you. Because all they saw was what? A letter with the stamp. So they come back to Medina al-Munawwara. And they go to Sayyidina Uthman and they said to him, did you write this letter? He said no. He said, is this letter from you? He says, the letter is from me, but I never wrote it. They said, is this your seal? He said, this is my seal, but it's not my letter. Eventually, it became clear that Marwan wrote the letter. Marwan forged the letter. Uthman and the people then turned around and said, give us Marwan. We want to punish him for what he has done. Uthman refused. Sayyidina Uthman refused. Why? Because the state of the Muslim is not a thug life. You understand? We're not like villages in India and Pakistan, where if one girl does something wrong, you know what happens in the villages? The whole elders of the village, they said, do this punishment, which is totally haram. It happens till this day. Law and order is not in the hands of the thugs. Law and order is in the hands of the officials. There's a law, there's a due process. Uthman refused, and then what happened? Because of this refusal from Uthman radiyallahu anhu, these people then besieged his house. For 40 days, Sayyidina Uthman, for 40 days, his house was besieged. For 40 days, Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu water was prohibited to enter into his house. For 40 days, they refused to let water in. Uthman during the day would fast, and during the night, he would pray. And then Ali comes to him, and Ali says to Amir al-Mu'mineen, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, you need to resolve this issue. And eventually, they both disagree. Ali says to him, I'm going to leave my two sons, Hassan and Hussain, to protect you. Now some of the narrations say, again like I said, don't open a book of history. Don't go to a tabri by yourselves, because it's full of fabricated narrations. That's not Imam Tabri's fault. Imam Tabri never wrote it for normal people. It was for the ulama. So Ali then said what? Radiallahu anhu warda. He says, I leave you to my sons. Uthman then says what? He says to his sons, Hassan and Hussain. He says to his servants, he says to the guards, he says, do not spill anyone's blood because of me. He says, I don't want to be that person who the Prophet said there will be a leader who will spill blood in Medina Sharif. Uthman says, I don't want to be that man. He says, don't raise the sword and don't violate any Muslim in this city. I'm warning you, don't. And they said, let us protect you. And then many of the other Sahaba come to him and they say what? They say, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, give us the order. Give us the order and we will call for bodyguards. We will call for the armies to come and protect you. You are Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, don't. He says, don't do that. I don't want to cause fitna. I don't want to cause this issue. At this time, Marwan, he runs away, one narration says. There is one narration that says that Marwan defended Uthman. It's a lie. There's no, the narration is weak. Marwan did not defend Uthman. Uthman's wife defended him. Okay? Uthman radiyallaho anhu warda's wife defended him. And they besieged the house of Sayyidina Uthman. If I take many of you have been to Medina Sharif, when you come out of, when you do ziyarah to the Prophet ﷺ, the moment you come out of that gate, there is a rectangular square building on the side, on the left, right outside the door. This is the main gate and it's on the left. That is the house of Uthman that he was shaheed in. That was the place that he was shaheed radiallahu anhu. Now the Saudis have it like a place where they keep, some stuff there, like cleaning stuff. Allah knows best, to enter into the haram and clean it. That is the place, right? So Uthman was very close to the Prophet, Rawdat al-Mubarak. And for 40 days, these people refused to allow anyone into the house. For 40 days, but they allowed Uthman to leave the house and to pray. They allowed him to pray. And they became even voluntary. Remember, these aren't people who have love of Islam in their heart. These are people from Egypt. These are people from Iraq that Islam went to. They never knew the real love of Uthman. Many of them never knew the fadail. It's not like nowadays we know the fadail. Many of them never knew the virtues of Uthman, how great he was. And they refused to do this. And seeing this fitna, for 40 days, they besieged the house of Uthman radiallahu anhu. For 40 days, no water was allowed inside the house of Uthman radiallahu anhu. And on the 40th day, Uthman had a dream. Sayyidina Uthman has a dream. In the dream, he sees the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah. And when he sees the Prophet says, have patience, O Uthman. Today you will open your fast with me. Subhanallah. Imagine that. He has a dream of the Prophet sallallahu. The Prophet comes to him in a dream. And the Prophet says, don't worry, Uthman, today they're not giving you water. They're avoiding to give you food. They're doing, oh, don't worry, I see this. On the day of judgment, I will seek revenge on your behalf. And he says, don't worry. He said, what? Don't worry. Because why? He said, you will open your fast today with me. In another narration, Sayyidina Uthman says that he has a dream. And he sees the Prophet near the throne of Allah, the arsh of Allah. And he sees the Prophet worried, troubled in the face, in his honorable face. And then Abu Bakr comes and he touches the shoulder of the Prophet. And then Umar comes and he touches the shoulder of the Prophet. And then Uthman says, I see from the arsh of Allah 2 rivers flowing of blood. 2 rivers of blood flowing. And when I see that, he said, it's an indication of my death. He wakes up from the dream and Uthman is extremely happy. He's overwhelmed with emotion that he saw the Prophet the first time in 40 days. And he's happy. He turns to his wife and his wife says to him, Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, oh my husband, why are you happy? Look at the situation, look at the scenery. They're attacking us, they're going to kill you, they're going to murder you. How can you be happy in this state? Uthman turns around and says, I saw Rasulullah. And the Prophet said to me, today you will open your fast with me. Today you will open your fast with me, don't worry. When Uthman does this, radiallahu anhu warda, he then goes to the guards there were guards protecting his house. That is the reason for 40 days the rebels weren't able to attack him. Why? Because he had what? Guards there. Uthman opens the door and says to guards, go, leave. But he says, I hold you accountable and I will hold you accountable on the day of judgment. Do not spill the blood of any Muslim because of me. I am free from what you do now. And the guards leave. When they see the guards are leaving, This is when the rebels then planned to burn the house, and they failed. Then Muhammad bin Abi Bakr comes into the house. At that time he was a man who was anti-Uthman. He comes into the house, and what is Uthman doing? He's reading the Quran. Sayyidina Uthman is reading the Quran, and he goes to Uthman and he grabs the beard of Uthman. He grabs his beard, and he says, "Oh, you old man." But Uthman is like 82 years old. And when he does that, Uthman has tears in his eyes. Sayyidina Uthman says, "Oh son of my brother." Subhanallah. He says, "Oh son of my brother, wallahi, if your father was here today, you would never do that." And that's when Muhammad bin Abi Bakr then realized who is Uthman al-Ghani. He then realized the dhulm that he was doing, and he ran out of the house. He ran out of the house, and the people were shocked. And then two men entered into the house. And when they entered into the house, Uthman is reading the Quran. Uthman turns to them and says, he says, "Between you and me is the book of Allah. Between you and me is the book of Allah." Warning them, and they left. They ran away. When they ran away, then another person came. And when he entered in, Uthman saw him and saw the anger in his face. What did Uthman do? Uthman radiyallaho anhu, he took his trousers and he tightened them. He tightened his trousers because he knew how evil these people were. They had no sharaf, they had no haya. So he tightened his trousers because he didn't want, after his death, for his sanctity to be violated. And then Uthman is still reading the Quran, and they come to Uthman and they hit him with an iron stick onto his head. They hit him with an iron stick on his head, and blood begins to pour from the honorable head of Uthman, and Uthman is between conscious and unconscious, and that blood then falls onto the verse of Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 137, فَسَيَكْفِكَهُمُ اللَّهُ. Subhanallah. On that exactly word it falls. What does it mean? And Allah will suffice you for your defense against him. Look at the verse it fell on. They were violating the honor of Uthman, and his blood fell on the verse where Allah said that for Allah will suffice for your defense against these people. And when this happened, Uthman stood, and one of the evil people amongst these Egyptian people that were there, he then attacked Uthman again, and Uthman he put his hand up and he cut the hand of Uthman. When Uthman looked at his hand that was cut, Uthman cried, and he said, "Wallahi, you have just cut the hand that was the first hand to write the wahi of Rasulullah down." He says, "That was the hand, I was the first man that wrote the revelation when the Prophet told me, 'Oh Uthman, write,' and I wrote." And then the man, he then took his sword and he hit Uthman in his stomach. And before he did that, his wife then apprehended the person. And his wife, she was bruised, she was cut, her fingers were cut. Uthman pushed her away to protect her, and the man killed Sayyidina Uthman. He then jumped on the body of Uthman. He then did what? He jumped on the body of Uthman and he stabbed him 7 to 8 times. Violated the honor of Uthman. And then he took the body of Uthman and he took it in Medina al-Munawwara. People don't know this. He took it in Medina Sharif and they threw the body in where? They threw the body where rubbish goes. And they said, no one can bury Uthman today. No one can come to Uthman. And that's when Habiba, the wife of the Prophet, got up. The wife of the Messenger of Allah got up. She said, "I am Habiba. I am the wife of the Prophet. I am the beloved of the Prophet." She said, "I swear by Allah, if any of you do not allow us to bury Uthman, I will come out in the streets of Medina with my hair uncovered. I will uncover my hair, I will walk in Medina, and I myself will bury Uthman, and we will see who will stop me." And when they realized what they have done, the situation, they then moved away. They moved away and they allowed Uthman to be buried. And his janazah was done by Zubair radiyallaho anhu warda. Zubair bin Awam led the funeral prayer. Uthman passed away on Friday, the 18th of Dhul Hijjah, in the 35 or the 35th year after Hijri. He was approximately 82 years old. And when he died on that day, and the news went back to Sayyidina Ali, when Sayyidina Ali heard that Uthman had been killed, Sayyidina Ali came running, and when he saw his own two sons, Hassan and Hussain, who he said protect Uthman, Sayyidina Ali began to beat them up. He began to hit them and said, didn't I leave you here to protect him? Didn't I leave you here? And then Ali radiyallaho anhu, he gets up on the minbar and he says to the people, he says, I am Ali, the son of Abi Talib. He says, I swear by Allah, I have nothing to do with the death of Uthman. I never killed him, nor do I agree with it, nor am I with the people who killed him. Those who have killed him, may Allah's curse be upon them. This is the incident. And when this happened, one narration says what? Which again, I'm saying to you, don't go to the books of history by yourself, my dear respectful brothers. You cannot do this. There are many lies in history. And what happened? They claim that for 4 days, there was no leader in Medina. A'udhu billah. When this incident happened, the Sahaba, the Akabirin of the Sahaba from Badr got together. Remember, many of the Sahaba, where were they? The vast majority of the Sahaba were at the Hajj. They were doing the Hajj. That is why they planned it in a way that the senior of the Sahaba would not be in Medina Sharif. So we could kill Uthman. That is how evil they were. Anyway, when the news got back, the Sahaba came back. The Sahaba went to Sayyidina Ali and they said, oh Ali, this is a fitna, this is a tribulation, and we ask you to allow us to give allegiance to you. Ali says, I don't deserve it. I am not a leader. I am not the best of you people. I am the worst of people. I refuse the leadership. Ali says, if this is the fitna that one leadership cause, I don't want it. And then they went to Talha. Talha refused. They went to Zubair. Zubair refused. All the Sahaba came together back to Ali and said, you have to become the leader. And then Ali turns around to Zubair and said to Zubair, Zubair's his cousin. They're first cousins. He turns to Zubair and says, take out your hand, O Zubair, O son of my auntie. Take out your hand so I may give allegiance to you. Zubair said, Wallahi, the hand of Zubair will not give allegiance to anyone more than you. And that's when the Sahaba, they gave allegiance to Sayyidina Ali radiyallaho ta'ala. They gave the bay'ah. And from that incident was the fitna that arose, the tribulations that arise, that the cause of why Imam Hussain was shaheed in the Karbala starts at this end. The fitna begins here, from the killing and the martyrdom of Sayyidina Uthman. He was murdered by certain people that had a political opportunity or a political reason. And Marwan, who was there, where was he? He disappeared. He left Medina. When he saw what was happening, he left his own father-in-law, his own brother, his own cousin. He left him. And what did he do? He went towards Syria. He went to Damascus. And he went to Damascus to Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, and he said to Muawiyah that this is what happened. So you can see the incidents that took place. And the scholars are very clear that the differences that took place after this incident is a clear indication that truth was with Sayyidina Ali. Very briefly, because I don't have time to go through the battle of the camel, the battle between the Muslims when Talha and Zubair and Aisha came. When the news had got back to the Sahaba who were in Mecca that Uthman had been martyred, Talha and Zubair come to Mecca Sharif and they come to Aisha radiallahu anha's house, and they said to Aisha, who at that time was residing, because she resides in Medina, but when she heard that Uthman was killed, she went to Mecca straight away, Aisha radiallahu anha. And they said to Aisha, "O Aisha, O mother of the believers, isn't it in our right to seek revenge for the blood of Uthman?" She said yes. They all agreed, 3 of them agreed, that they would march to where? One of them said, let's march to Medina Sharif first. Let's march to Medina and seek revenge. The second of them said, no, let's march to Syria to get reinforcement. And the third of them said, no, let's go directly to Basra in Iraq. Eventually all agreed that they should go to Basra. Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha, she doesn't take an army with her. This is a lie. Aisha never took an army. Aisha left her house radiallahu anha, and when she began to walk, everyone followed her. Everyone followed her to such an extent that by the time they left Mecca, she had 3,000 men with her. 3,000 soldiers were with her, ready to fight. Eventually, they continued to move and they got to a place in Basra and they wanted to have some type of arbitration, or they wanted to seek revenge for the people who had done what they've done. And Ali radiyallahu anhu met them in Basra. When they met in Basra, Ali sends radiyallahu anhu one of his representatives, Ibn Amr, to negotiate. And he goes to the camp of Aisha radiallahu anha and he speaks to Aisha. Eventually Aisha and both of them disagree radiallahu anha. He comes back. When this happens, Sayyidina Ali then comes in. Sayyidina Ali comes forward and he goes to Aisha radiallahu anha and he says, "Oh mother of the believers," he said, "it is not your job to rise an army and to fight in jihad. This is in violation to the Prophet." He says, "Oh Aisha, don't you remember that the Prophet said to me when you were there? Don't you remember what the Prophet said? Oh Ali, there would come a time where you will have a confrontation with one of my wives." And Ali said, "May Allah forbid that to happen." And the Prophet said, "No Ali, you will be on haqq, you will be on right." The Prophet said, "Clear, Ali, you will be in the right." Ali said, "This isn't your job." Aisha says, "I want to seek revenge." Wallahi, she says, "I swear by Allah, I have not come to fight. I have not come for any purpose apart from seeking the revenge for the blood of Uthman." She says, "If you do not do that, this will be a precedent that every Muslim leader will be killed. Every Muslim leader in the future will be killed if you do not teach them a lesson now. One reason is to seek the blood of Uthman. Number two, to teach a lesson to everyone that you cannot rise against the leader. You must have law and order." Ali turns around and says to her, he says, "Oh Aisha, don't you remember the hadith of the Prophet? That the Prophet said that there will come a time that when one of my wives will go to Hawa and the dogs will bark at her. The dogs will bark at one of my wives." He says to Aisha, "Don't you remember that hadith?" And Aisha says, "Yes." She remembered it. And she remembered the incident a few moments earlier, a few days maybe, that she went past this place called Hawa and the dogs came out barking at her. And then she immediately remembered the hadith of the Prophet. And then she wanted to go back. But Talha and Zubair said, "No, we must go forward." Ali then says to her, "It is best that we don't fight. There is no need to fight. Why should we shed the blood of over 5,000 Muslims? For what reason?" Ali said, "I am the leader. I am the Amir. Give your allegiance to me. Let the fitna calm. Let everything calm down. Once it is calm, I will seek the murderers of Uthman." He says, "I have a right to it. Uthman was my cousin. He's like my brother. We were both married to the daughters of the Prophet. We spent time together. We prayed together. Don't you think I'm hurting too? I am hurt of Uthman in my heart. But what you are doing is wrong." He turns to Zubair. He says, "Oh Zubair, you are my cousin." He says, you are the son of my auntie. Do you really want to violate and fight me?" He says, "Don't you know who I am?" He's reminding them now. The maqam of Sayyidina. He's reminding the Sahaba. Eventually Talha and Zubair, they all agreed. What was the agreement? They said, "We will have reconciliation. We will have sulha, peace. There will be peace." And they retired. Within the group of Sayyidina Ali was some of the murderers of Uthman. What they did, what they planned, they said, "In the morning, some of you go into the camp of Aisha radiallahu anha and some of you be here. You shout and say, 'Aisha, Talha, Zubair, you have betrayed Allah.' And you then say, 'Ali has betrayed Allah.' And then we will fight. You fire a spear, we will fire back, let the war begin, and you can't stop it." You understand? And this is exactly what they did. I'm going very quickly through it, not through every detail, there's much more detail. And they began to fight against each other. When Sayyidina Ali saw this, he gave the order and said to his generals, "Stop fighting," but they weren't listening to him. And they began to fight and they began to kill each other. To such an extent that when Talha radiyallaho anhu saw the fitna, Talha was about to leave, and that's when Marwan, he shot an arrow and he killed Sayyidina Talha. There are people today, a'udhu billah, who praise Marwan and say Marwan was a good man. How can Marwan be a good man when he murdered Talha radiallahu anhu warda? Talha is from the Sahaba. Anyone that murders any Sahabi, anyone that says anything bad about a Sahabi, we hate him. What about the man who violated the blood of a Sahabi? You know, people should have some type of shame in their character when they try to defend these people. Then what happened? When the battle had begun, the enemies who were the killers of Uthman radiallahu anhu warda, they saw Aisha on a camel radiallahu anha, and she was being protected by a group of people. So what did they do? They then charged to kill her, a'udhu billah. That's how far they were willing to go. And when Aisha saw this, she got up and said, "O people, I am the wife of the Prophet. I order you to stop this fighting." And the people ignored them. And that is when Aisha did dua. Oh Allah, curse the murderers of Uthman. Oh Allah, curse the murderers of Uthman. And then Ali heard the dua. Then the side of Ali then began to say, oh Allah, curse the murderers of Uthman. And they attacked Aisha to such an extent, the commotion was so much that her camel fell. And she nearly fell off her camel. And when the people saw this incident, everyone stopped. Alhamdulillah. Everyone stopped. And that is when that incident ended. And the conclusion of that was what? Aisha retired, radiallahu anha, and from that day until the day that she passed away, Aisha withdrew from public life. And her only job was to teach people. And she said many times, towards the end of her life, she said, this is the biggest regret I have what I did. There was a reconciliation, but unfortunately, the blood of the Muslims was spilled. And that is where the fitna begins. The martyrdom of who? Sayyidina Uthman. And it continues towards where? The fight or the battle between Siffin, between Muawiyah radiallahu anhu and the war between Sayyidina Ali. There was a war between them. But we know for sure that the Prophet said what? Quoting what Imam Nawawi says. And Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala clearly says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about one of the Sahabi, Ammar bin Yasir, one of the great Sahabi, whose parents Sumayya and Yasir were the first martyrs of Islam. The Prophet said, oh Ammar, you will be killed by the rebels. You will be killed by the... And this hadith, according to Imam Nawawi, says that this is indication that the army of Ali was on al-haq. Muawiyah radiallahu anhu warda made a mistake. It was, some say, khata'i ijtihadi. It was a mistake in ijtihad. Some of the ulama say it was not ijtihad. Some of the ulama have given different views. Irrespective of the differences, we respect both individuals, Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu anhu warda. We do not speak ill of them. And the final thing that happened before tomorrow we begin the series, tomorrow is about the character of Imam Hussain and Yazid, giving you an overshoot of the two characters, who is Yazid and who is Imam Hussain. And the final sentence in 1 minute that I want to finish for the salam is, then Imam Hussain, after the martyrdom of Sayyidina Ali was martyred, he was martyred by Ibn Muljam in the masjid in Kufa. Then Imam Hussain became the leader. After 6 months of being the leader, Imam Hussain abdicated his leadership under the condition of what? That after Muawiyah passed away, that leadership would come back to me, and from me would go to Imam Hussain. But eventually what happened? Imam Hussain passed away. He was poisoned by his wife. His wife poisoned him, and he was poisoned, and when he was on his deathbed, Imam Hussain said to him, tell me who did this to you. And he said, I don't want to. I take my case with Allah. And eventually he passed to him. And the final part is after that incident, when Muawiyah passes away, or just before he passes away, which we will discuss the background to the Battle of Karbala in much more detail, is when, how did Yazid become the leader? Yazid became the de facto leader during the life of Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. May Allah bless us and forgive us for our shortcomings and give us the ability to follow the Sunnah and to learn from the life of Uthman ibn Affan, and may Allah forgive me for anything I've said which is wrong. Do you have any questions for 1 minute at all?
Job of the Khalifa to recheck the letter that was sent out. And secondly, how many very political Islamic ways of
Regarding the letters, the thing is the Khalifa could not keep hold of every letter. It's impossible. Hundreds of letters come. Hence the reason he had people there to look after his letters. And unfortunately, because of his softness, yeah, he checked them, but he changed it. Marwan would change it. So he would sign the letter, and then he would change the letter afterwards. And regarding the way to elect a leader, it has never been father to son. This is kingship. The way to elect a leader is that the best of the Muslims come together and they should elect the best of the people as their leaders. Every period after the Khulafa Rashid is only for 30 years. From that period that Imam Hussain abdicated his leadership, from that time until Imam Mahdi comes, all of that is kingship. All of that is kingship. The only time Al-Khulafa Rashida will come back will be when Imam Mahdi comes. And that will be in the Sunnah of the Khulafa Rashida. And that's in the Hadith. Any questions at all? Last one? Mahmoud, last one? It's easy to use more. Egyptians were the main people, part of the group. Predominantly all the historians mention them, but within them there were the Basrans and the Kufans were also with them. But the vast amount of the 1,000 men that came to Medina, the majority of them were from Egypt. And the person who murdered Sayyidina Uthman was from Egypt too. I can't remember his names are coming to my head, but it's been mentioned in the books. He was a black person, a very dark individual. He was the one that murdered Sayyidina Uthman. I think we'll just do dua inshallah then. It's time for Allah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim wa salli alayhi. Allahumma wa salamu alayhi wa salamu tabarak ta'ala wa karam. Wa sallallahu ta'ala sallallahu. Inshallah tomorrow we will discuss Yazid and Imam Hussain inshallah at the same time. Inshallah if someone can
والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا نبي الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا نور الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول